Last topic. Cameron, what's the topic?
Gun control.
Okay, that's perfect. That's perfect. We'll have tons of funny skits and funny jokes and stuff.
Well, okay, about that,
Yeah?
we're doing a serious review this time.
You can't be serious. It's not gonna be funny. Cameraman, can I talk to you for a second?
Okay, we seriously, it needs to be funny. No, we cannot do this. This is team equality. It's the only team equality. No, we're doing a documentary. We're doing a documentary. Listen to yourself. No, it has to be funny. No, it cannot be funny. It has to be documentary.
Alright guys, we're gonna be really serious.
There you go, perfect.
Hey guys, I'm John Jones. Hello all smart fellas and fart smellers. Today we're going to be talking about one of America's most hot button issues of the time. This issue has been on the nation's mind since its foundation. The Second Amendment and gun control. With the increasing gun violence across the nation, many are wondering whether or not the Second Amendment is truly protecting us. We understand the seriousness of the topic and therefore will not be doing any jokes or gags. We will not be doing any jokes or gags in this episode. I can't keep a straight face. Of course we're gonna do them. Before we begin, let's look at some quick facts. The number of active shooter incidents per year has been steadily rising, with an unusual spike in 2010. Understandably, it was a rough year for everybody. At the same time, America has the highest ratio of guns per 100 people, at a whopping 120.5 per 100 people, which is almost twice as much as the country in second place. These circumstances led to the creation of two very distinct, yet opposing sides over the issue of gun control. That's enough of me. Let's go on to Tom Thompson to talk to you about the full history of this national debate.
Thanks, John. This whole thing started way back during the foundation of the nation, when the Constitution, and more importantly the Bill of Rights, were written. In this legislature, it clearly stated that every U.S. citizen had the right to bear arms, but the vague wording of this statement has led to multiple interpretations and arguments throughout the years. Ever since then, the battle for gun control has been a constant back and forth between the two sides. For example, in the 60s, Lyndon B. Johnson passed the Gun Control Act, which created more gun restrictions. But in the following decade, we watched as the NRA gained more political power in order to repeal anti-gun legislation. As mentioned previously by John Johnson, the amount of active shooter incidents has been rising throughout the 2000s, with specific incidents such as the Virginia Tech shooting, the Sandy Hook massacre, and the Las Vegas shooting, which caused a national outcry for greater gun control, such as the ban of assault weapons being defined as semi-automatic weapons with high-capacity magazines. Attempts to ban assault weapons have been made, as seen with the Brady Bill, which was passed in 1994, and banned assault weapons, but they never stick around too long, as they are often repealed or never renewed by the people imposing it. All this goes to show that both sides have good reasons to defend their stances. One has a constitutional right, and the other sees the violence caused by the lack of regulation and wants to change that. Difference in viewpoints will be discussed in more detail with my colleague James Jameson in the next section when we talk about the liberal versus conservative stance.
You're kidding me. You already did the segue to the next section? What the That's my thing.
Look, I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
Big deal? No big deal. That's my segue. Are they gonna still argue? I'm just gonna go on with my thing. Hello, I'm now going to discuss the extremely differing viewpoints of the liberals and conservatives when it comes to the issue of gun control in the United States. The liberal stance, which is extremely anti-gun and pro-gun control, mostly comes as a response to the increasing amount of gun violence in the nation. They claim that a ban on assault weapons would solve the issue, and that this has already been proven to work through the temporary implementation of the 1994 to 2004 ban on assault weapons, which led to a decrease in public massacres and mass shootings. In response to the issue and statistics, Stanford law professor John Donahue and Stanford student Theodora Balauda said, with increasing potent and readily available weaponry, the average number of people who die in a gun massacre has increased by 81% in just 5 years. At least 234 of the 271 people who died in gun massacres since 2014 were killed by weapons prohibited under the federal assault weapons ban.
Liberals also do not support the lack of regulation when it comes to self-defense laws, as they believe that it encourages a shoot first and ask questions later mentality. Overall, many liberals don't demand an entire outright ban of all guns in the nation, but only of assault weapons, and wish to see more regulation, as they believe that without proper regulation when it comes to access of high-power weapons, extreme amounts of weaponry can be owned by a single person. Now to talk about the conservatives. Unlike the liberals, they're a lot more unified and straightforward when it comes to their arguments. They're all for the ownership of guns and preservation of their gun rights. They believe that banning any type of weapon would be a violation of their Second Amendment rights and also their right to self-defense, which they also support the openness of such laws. The response to the statistics about gun violence and crimes is that only a small minority commit crimes with guns, and that most people are responsible gun owners that use them only for sport. Their argument about why they should be able to keep assault weapons is that assault weapons aren't used in most crimes that are actually committed with guns, and that a gun's magazine size has nothing to do with whether or not it'll be used to kill a person. All these answers from both sides were a little bit confusing, so we emailed 2 organizations to get some answers.
We emailed the...
What are you doing here?
I got bored, so I'm doing the interviews now.
You're kind of screwing up with the whole flow of my section right now.
I don't care. Anyways, we emailed the Buckeye Firearms Association and the Ohio Coalition Against Gun Violence. I'm gonna put these logos on screen, and then you take a guess as to which one is pro-gun. If you guess the Ohio Coalition Against Gun Violence, then you're wrong, and you should be really feeling bad about yourself right now and feeling really ashamed. We got some great answers to our questions from the Buckeye Firearms Association, and we got a pamphlet from the other guys. It was an alright pamphlet.
Okay, go away. We emailed 2 different organizations, as previously mentioned, the Buckeye Firearm Association and the Ohio Coalition Against Gun Violence. Both did get back within a very timely manner, so I'd like to extend my thanks to Dean Reek of Buckeye Firearm Association and whoever answered, they didn't give their name, but whoever answered for the Ohio Gun Violence Coalition. Both gave great responses with a lot of information. Our first question that we asked was about asking about their stance on a ban of assault rifles and or high-capacity magazines in Ohio. So for the Buckeye Firearm Association, they responded with the following: we are opposed to this 100%, and said other things such as AR-15 style rifles are the most popular long gun in the US, used for hunting, sport, competition, and self-defense. The magazines these firearms use are not high capacity but standard capacity. Less than 3% of homicides are committed with rifles. Knives or even fists are used more to kill people. The opposing people, I guess you could say, or the Ohio Coalition Against Gun Violence, their response to this question, as seen in the pamphlet, is: we support the regulation of assault-type weapons and large-capacity magazines, as they can and do take lives at a numerous rate of speed, which allows for the mass shootings we have witnessed across the country. When asked about if the United States is doing an efficient job at regulating who purchases firearms, the Buckeye Firearm Association answered, talking about how in our current justice system, many people who commit violent crimes are being released on low bail or no bail and going on to commit more crimes. The focus of our criminal system should not be to further burden the law-abiding with more laws to follow, but instead to arrest, prosecute, and strictly enforce laws against those who are proven to be violent offenders. In other words, the issue shouldn't be about the guns, but about violent criminals. What the Ohio Coalition Against Gun Violence said about it is that we support gun bills that are intended to reduce gun violence and keep Ohioans safe in their homes, on the streets, in schools, places of worship, and within public buildings. We oppose proposed legislature and existing gun bills that do not protect our citizens and that would increase access to and use of guns, restrict or prohibit law enforcement from doing their job safely, and endorse a sense of secrecy through allowing unlicensed concealed carry and other unsafe practices. We also asked them the question: do you believe that stricter gun control laws can prevent gun violence? The Buckeye Firearm Association responded with a resounding no, saying that most violent crimes are committed by those who ignore the laws. More laws won't have any effect. Again, current law should not be enforced against those actually committing violent acts. The Ohio Coalition Against Gun Violence, again, only gave us a pamphlet, so the answer that we found, the one from last time, saying that they support bills that would protect citizens in places of worship, in public, on streets and whatnot. So I'm going to take from that statement that they are saying a yes, that stricter gun laws would in fact reduce gun violence. Our final question that we asked them is that if they believe that the average person would benefit from having firearms for self-defense, or does it cause more problems than it resolves? The Buckeyes Firearm Association responded that it was a personal choice, but in Ohio, more than 4 million people chose to do so, and that they supported such a decision while 7 to 8 million did not, and that it is a person's right to choose due to the Second Amendment in the Constitution, and that they think it's beneficial for people to do so. The Ohio Coalition Against Gun Violence says that they believe that laws such as carrying loaded weapons in public and stand your ground increase, not reduce, gun violence. Therefore saying no to such a question. Overall, both sides make some very valid points when it comes to their opinions on gun regulation. Now to Dave Davidson to talk about how other ways that countries are succeeding with their gun regulation laws.
The US has one of the highest homicide rates by firearm per 1 million people in the world, and that's for a reason. This reason is, of course, the amount of regulation of how guns are acquired and what type of guns are allowed to be in civilian hands. Surprisingly, one of the safest places when it comes to lack of firearm deaths is a land down under, Australia. So before 1996, Australia didn't have nearly as many gun regulations as they do now. That all changed after the Port Arthur massacre, where 35 people were killed by a shooter. After this, massive reforms were made to gun regulations. A gun buyback created by the government resulted in over 200,000 firearms being given to the government to be destroyed, with over 1 million being seized for destruction. This diminishing of the national stockpile, along with increased restrictions on civilians' abilities to acquire guns, led to many statistical changes in Australia when it came to gun violence. The risk of an Australian dying by gunshot fell by over 50% and it stayed there. The amount of gun homicides per year was halved, and since 1996, there have been no more mass shootings. Australia is an example of how regulations on guns can lead to a decrease in gun violence.
Oh my god, it happened again, didn't it? They're dead. They're so dead for stealing my lines. As a group, our opinion is that while owning a gun is fine, increased requirements and training are needed in order to own a gun. We also believe that the owning of assault weapons is a little bit overkill and that there should be a bit more restriction on what type of guns people can own.
Thank you for watching. But before we end the video, we would like to ask a few questions that you can discuss.
Plus, we need to do it so we can get a good grade.
That too. Should the US make it harder to own a firearm by increasing the requirements needed to buy one?
Are assault weapons inherently more dangerous than other firearms, such as sidearms?
Is it realistically possible for the US to ban assault weapons given their widespread use?
Are my group mates such a bunch of who are trying to steal my thunder?
And then That's right, folks, we're back. The gun bin is back. After multiple lawsuits and a settlement, we are back. And what a better way to promote your brand than the national tragedies. That's right, we have a new design. Alright, we've increased the size because we realized that making it bigger kind of takes away from the whole point, which is a nice compact place to store your guns. So now you can have them overflowing right out of the bin in a comical sort of fashion. You can do whatever you want. You can throw them around. You can swim in them. You can shoot people if you want. Actually, don't shoot people, please, because we already got sued for encouraging that once.